Let's ride! All right, welcome back to week 4 of Pathways, and today, arguably our most exciting episode and podcast thus far with the inbound New England Free Jacks head coach for the 2021 through 2023 seasons, Ryan Martin. Ryan's a man who's meticulously detailed, strategical, hardworking, and passionate in nature. I'm pumped to have him on board. He's got a hell of a story, and we're going to explore that, his background, what he's going to bring to the Free Jacks, and so on today. Ryan, mate, officially appointed. How exciting is this? Tell us how you're feeling about the appointment and how it's going with balancing all your different roles you've got at the moment. Yeah, mate, how are you feeling?
Oh, firstly, thanks for this opportunity to talk. No, I'm pretty pumped, to be honest. It's been a cool process that we went through in the interview. I really enjoyed that, actually. It was throwed a couple of interesting questions out that I've never kind of come across, so that was cool. But yeah, I'm really excited. Like looking at the MLR and especially obviously the Free Jacks, I'm pretty pumped around where they're at the moment. And for me, it's like a startup business. It's exciting times. We're kind of able to come in and maybe do some different things and test the waters around a few ideas I've got. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of MLR games. Actually, I go to Les Mills gym here and jump on the cross trainer and throw a game on. So I've actually really enjoyed the games. I think there's some cool things, some good players, high profile players over there at the moment. And it's actually quite interesting because having worked with the Rebels in Australia and now back in New Zealand with Otago, there's a significant amount of interest around the MLR from both Australia and New Zealand. There's almost an intrigue around what's going on there. So I think the MLR is in a really good space around that. And I know Australia especially are definitely got their eyes on the competition and having a look at the direction of it.
Yeah, mate, awesome. And it does, and we'll touch on that, but it does work really well with those Southern Hemisphere competition structures and dates with MLR. But, mate, so you're from Southern New Zealand, you're captain of Otago Boys High School, and you guys played the national secondary school final against Rotorua Boys High School. You captained the team with Richie McCaw in that instance. You've taught for 17 years, coached Otago Boys High School, 64 wins on the trot with them over a 5-year tenure. Correct me if I'm wrong. Assistant coach for 2 years with the New Zealand Barbars, head coach of the Barbars for 1 year, Otago attack coach for the last 3 years in the Mitre 10 Cup, Ranfurly Shield winners, and currently Melbourne Rebels skills and kick strategy coach, mate. So hell of a resume. What can we expect? What are you going to bring to the Free Jacks? What are you excited about? I mean, it's sort of been a bit of a journey to get to this point, and you're well equipped with the tools to take on this next challenge.
Yeah, I think probably going back to how you started around my background, I'd actually become a father when I was 18 years of age, and to be honest, that was the greatest thing to happen to me as a young fella, and gave me a real passion and drive, which I believe got me to where I am today. I ended up looking after my daughter full time and went on a benefit in the New Zealand system over here. And it gave me a real appreciation of having to scrap out of a hole. And obviously not being an ex-professional rugby player, when you go into the coaching world, the only way you can go up is through player development and the success of your team. There's actually no other way. So I suppose I'm a little bit of an anomaly or an outlier in the New Zealand system, having not played professionally and obviously coaching professionally now. But I think that's giving me that's my real strength. 17 years in the education system in and around teaching and learning. And the biggest eye-opener for me was when I did come into the professional world of coaching 4 years ago. I realised pretty quickly that everything is actually just a race to learn. And so on a Monday when you turn up for a match on a Saturday, you're now in a race with the opposite coaches around which team learns the most. And I almost had a chuckle to myself because that's my home. I've been doing that for 17 years, teaching and learning. So in terms of what do I bring to the table, I bring a really in-depth understanding around working with people rather than players. I have a passion around making players better and skill acquisition. And I always kind of have a saying, to ask for a hand, you have to touch a heart. So I like to get an emotional connection first and foremost with each player, and then that leads into what you can do with the team. And probably one of my biggest things is coaching knowledge is not an advantage in the game anymore. There's so many awesome resources online. You can go to any courses. Basically, you can get any resource you need to successfully coach. But I think the game's flipped now to intent, and it becomes around the hows and the whys. And one of my favourite things that I like to kind of use is it's better to have 15 people on the field doing something simple but with awesome intent, rather than 7 people knowing what they're meant to do, 8 not too sure and not getting that intent. And I really think the game's gone that way. Just looking especially at the Super Rugby Aotearoa and obviously the Australian version as well. Intent is huge. And if your team knows how and why, and there's awesome engagement through emotional connection, I think you're always on to a winner.
Yeah, good man. And you touched on that skill acquisition. And I know that obviously your range and your experiences right from you've worked your way all the way up from the grassroots, from primary school through high school, New Zealand schools obviously, and now you're working at Super Rugby level. So you're skilled in taking players right through that skill acquisition journey. And Major League Rugby is probably a unique challenge in that you've got players who have played for a long, long time and are highly skilled, and those that are just coming into the game. And it's a challenge that a lot of coaches struggle with, and not only the players, but you've also got to upskill the coaches. And would you imagine that that's probably going to lend itself quite nicely to, what you're going to face come November 30th, 2020?
Totally. That was what excited me around the opportunity. I actually had a similar role with the Asia Pacific Dragons in Global Rapid Rugby in 2019, and a lot of what we did in Singapore was actually to work with the grassroots, and they'd never had a professional entity around a rugby team in Singapore before. And what I wanted to do was create real pathways. So everyone talks about pathways for the domestic players, but the way to do that was we actually took our team around the clubs and we trained with the club teams. So at night time, our professional team, the Asia Pacific Dragons, would turn up to a club and literally train with them, like body on body. And we got some huge goodwill from that, and huge shifts in the players, to the point where we ended up having 3 Singapore local players play a professional game in Global Rapid Rugby. And to give you an indication of the level, we played the Western Force, who are currently now back in Australia AU and doing really well, pushing all those professional teams. We lost a match to them in Singapore 7-3, and we had 2 Singapore players on the field. So I was probably most proud of the fact that we gave a genuine, authentic pathway to the domestic players. And that's a lot of what I see happening in the States, and what I'm really passionate about is having an open door policy, but also having the ability to actually work at the coalface, which is my passion. Obviously, coming from there, I have a real appreciation of what that looks like, and not just lip service to those entities as well. So that's huge for me around us creating an environment where there are pathways. As soon as there's true pathways, I think the supporters recognise that, and that's where you get the buy-in from your supporting group. Because if they know that little Jimmy down the road potentially could be a professional rugby player, they get pumped around the product that they're supporting, and that's what I'm probably most excited about.
Yeah, that's spot on, Ryan. And I've seen you at the coalface, and Otago Boys High School is probably a pretty good example of you working pretty hard at the coalface to create something pretty special. And the success largely over the last 10 years is for a big part down to yourself. And you had a few pretty unique and out-of-the-box ideas and ventures. Mate, can you talk about some of those, like the lunchtime trainings? You had those guys working harder than anyone else, and, any near proximity. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so when I went to Otago Boys, got employed there in 2010, being an old boy, I knew how important the success of the rugby program and the school was for the demeanour of the community and for the overall feeling in the school. And I was a little bit disappointed at the state that they were in when I turned up. So with one of our key leaders, I came up with a mantra: never worship talent, worship work ethic. And we were never going to be able to compete nationally in New Zealand with some of the top private boys' schools with their rugby programs. They had professional coaches. What we could compete with was work ethic. So we went to work as a group, and at times it was very, very, very challenging for the players. But what it did is it built calluses on their brain and in their thinking around, what is hard work? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And what that did is created a snowball effect amongst their peers. So the initial group that started with that training ethic in mind kind of created a really cool culture. Now, young men want to look good. They want to be physically fit. So it was a real easy way to create a pathway for guys that wanted to come into the program. And we started with what we called a sport class, which was basically inside the timetable at school. They would choose sport class, which meant they could train in the gym under my tutelage. And we started with one class. And when I left the Otago Boys in 2018, we had 6 classes, just essentially 150 boys on individualised training programs, which is pretty phenomenal and maintain a pretty cool decade in Otago Boys history around success. And the success wasn't just the success of the team. Obviously, you talked about the 64-game winning streak. We went to the national top 4 times. We held the Ranfurly Shield of schoolboy rugby for 50 games. But it was also the success individually. So we provided 28 boys to New Zealand schools and New Zealand Barbarians, which is the most of any school in New Zealand. Bearing in mind, we're competing with some schools that are 4 or 5 times bigger than us and privately funded as well. So for me, that was huge. The thing I loved the most, which people don't tend to talk about, was any given Sunday in Dunedin Club Rugby, boys who had left the Otago Boys, we would have 40 or 50 of them playing locally in the Dunedin Premier Rugby competition, giving back to the clubs and the community. Now, to me, that's real success because it's easy to measure it on, obviously, the team and the guys that go on to get the contracts. But do people in your program go on and add value at a grassroots level? And that's probably what I'm most proud of is there's a real love for the game and a love of giving back and helping others. I've been around clubs over the last 4 weeks as my role with Otago, and it's actually awesome because a lot of the coaching groups have an Otago Boys flavour, and they're doing a lot of the drills I do in the same language, and it's just gold.
Yeah, you know half of them.
Correct.
Good stuff. And Ryan, mate, that's awesome. If you've had a few amazing experiences now, one of them being the Ranfurly Shield. You guys won and retained that 2018 for 9 games, I believe. Tell us about sort of that experience from your side of things.
Yeah, the Shield is probably the most significant trophy in New Zealand rugby, and it has a very rich and proud history. And to win the Shield is bigger than the game itself. It's around communities. People it's very hard to explain how it endears communities to this what they call the Lower Wood. But for us to win it in 2018 was significant. We're a pretty undermanned team in terms of physical size, and I think at the time we may have had 4 or 5 Super Rugby players, whereas the team we beat, Waikato, either had double. I think they may have had 11 or 12 Super Rugby players in their team, and so we had to be smart around how to beat teams like that. And what I was probably most proud of is I invented an attack system that wasn't based around shape. It was based around lanes across the field, and it manipulated who you wanted to touch the ball the most in your team. But also, I'm a real fan of everyone in the team. So once set piece has been completed, there's actually no positions. Don't worry about the number on the back of your jersey. We all just are dynamic carry cleaners. And I think that builds a real cool culture in your team. If I would personally, I've never played there, but I'd hate to be a prop or locks, and my whole job is just to hit breakdowns. Because firstly, the breakdowns in the modern game are absolutely brutal. The inertia of force in there is not fun. And secondly, if you're continually sending those big fellas into those collisions, I believe you're shortening their career. So to play a style where you're not just going into brick walls and what I say, putting your head into the spokes for no other apparent reason, is madness. So that's probably what I was most proud of. When we won it in a way that we outthought a superior physical team to what we had. And it was a real interesting year, 2019, because no one expected us to hold it. Every game we had a Renfrew Shield challenge, which is when you play at home. Everyone was kind of thinking, well, this is the last time I'll hold it. So for us to get through to the very last match of the season when we did lose it to Canterbury, who are a superpower in New Zealand rugby, but they had to take it, we went down fighting. It wasn't, and I was proud of our team. And to have a little bit of, to be part of the Renfrew Shield for me and be in its history is huge. My grandfather actually won it in 1935. So it was pretty cool to have a connection through that as well.
Yeah, awesome, mate. And Ryan, so it's been announced today, New England Free Jacks head coach for 2021 through 23. You're taking over from Josh Smith, who's done a fantastic job with the team thus far, 2019-2020 with the Curra Cup exhibition season, and he's going to be moving into a head coach of the independence role. So he's still going to be a big part of the franchise. We've got a very exciting roster coming together for 2021, and an announcement coming around the corner on Thursday. Without telling too much, what can you tell us about that squad that you're beginning to assemble? You've been sort of in the background working for the last month or so, pulling strings and putting that together. Yeah, mate, tell us a little bit about that. I know you're excited about it.
Oh, totally. So just to straight away, my whole recruitment policy is recruit for character and train for skill. So it was really important for me to look at the person coming in. Are they going to add value to the organisation? And that's a big word, because when I say organisation, I'm talking about all the off-field staff, our community, people, our supporters. I'm not bringing in mercenaries who are just coming in selfishly to collect their money, have a cool lifestyle in Boston and then leave. I'm wanting a guy that's bringing in, we're going to connect, we're going to help our domestic players, we're going to create pathways and add value to what's been an awesome organisation to date. So that's basically the premise I've used. I think we're in an interesting time around the world with COVID. The European and South American markets are in a little bit of disarray. So what that's helped with our recruitment is being able to have some pretty awesome conversations with guys that maybe normally wouldn't be available. So in terms of looking at it from an MLR perspective, we're lucky in what COVID has potentially done to some of the other competitions around the world. So in saying that, some of our recruits have been proven international performers, and also in Super Rugby, we've got some guys that have not only played Super Rugby but actually dominated in that competition. And that was important for me. When you're recruiting, you need to bring somebody in who is essentially world class in their position, and that's where you get a bit of respect. And then secondly, as I mentioned before, is this person able to come in and add value to the organisation? Is he going to be able to help in a coaching role and upskill and show what a professional player's lifestyle is like and upskill around that? So ticking all those boxes, I believe we've got some pretty exciting guys who are going to add massive value, along with the squad that was already in place. And obviously, part of the head coach role is you need to identify the profile of the team and the way you want to play the game. So once again, I've been in a great situation knowing how I like to play the game, and I've been able to look at players' skill sets and profiles around being able to play that type of rugby. So that's probably pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, nice, Ron. And we've been, everyone will have just seen a few clips emerge, halftime chats within the Mitre 10 Cup for Otago. You do like to have fun with it, yourself and Tom Donnelly, Lee Allen, who's actually with Atlanta. So tell us a bit about sort of your coaching philosophy. You'd like to have a bit of fun with it. You talked about pathways. What exactly do we need to do within the club game with the coaches to help with those tangible pathways, taking people from the players from the grassroots level all the way through to the professional realm? tell us what we're going to see from Ryan, both at the halftime interviews, Major League Rugby games 2021, as well as day-to-day sort of at the coalface, as you're so familiar with.
Yeah, I'm really passionate around changing the game. I think we get stuck in rugby cliches. We get stuck in what other people are doing. I'm really passionate about innovation and doing things differently. And I learned a lot of that from being here. My head coach at Otago, he's one of the most out there people you'll ever meet. And I've got a real appreciation of not getting stuck in the cliches of rugby. I think it's really easy to. So in saying that, going back to how I started this podcast, it's around intent, and that's our field staff as well. It's about us getting better as people every day, and maybe having, what's the little quirk that we can use this week that might give us an advantage in the preparation of the team. So if people are expecting a run-of-the-mill head coach, that's not going to be happening. I'll be putting some pretty challenging ideas out there. We'll be having some fun with the way we play the game. There's going to be some things that people have never ever seen before. I think we'll be a team that embraces new ideas. We'll be challenging ourselves each week to be at the forefront of this competition, but also I want people internationally looking at us and saying, wow, what's going on there? Because it's pretty special. So I think for me, energy is the currency of performance. So you're going to see a pretty energetic team. That's the first marker that we'll be measuring ourselves on. And I always kind of like a saying that Wayne Goldsmith, he's a motivational speaker in Australia, talked about. And he said strong teams and weak teams actually have the same things on the wall. If you go to any organisation, the bottom team of the league or the top, everything is basically the same. It's the people and the engagement and the emotional connections and the energy that is the only difference. And I think that's what I'm going to be priding myself and the organisation on, that anyone who comes in to be part of us will feel that emotional connection and be thoroughly welcomed. As I said, there's going to be a lot of excitement around how we play the game. I think that's really important, especially being what I call a startup business. You've got to engage people through that they look at something that's got a wow factor to it. So that's probably going to be the big areas I'm going to be looking at doing.
Good man. And mate, I know you're not afraid of hard work. Currently, you're head coach, preparing a team, organising a roster for the Free Jacks, as well as that you're preparing Otago for the Mitre 10 Cup campaign, which is about to begin early September. And on top of that, you're still working with the Rebels in that Super Rugby realm, Super Rugby AU, breaking down games, coaching from afar. How's that going for you, balancing all of that? Obviously, it's a massive challenge, but it's probably helping you at the same time.
It's actually quite interesting. A lot of my coaching career, I've actually had multiple roles. So when I was at Otago Boys High School, I was coaching a premier club, men's club here in Dunedin. And people would say, is it too much? And I said, no, because a coach needs to be like a player. That the more you coach and do with different teams, the better you get. There's just no hiding from that. And I've been lucky for the past 3 years to be involved in multiple campaigns and just keep sharpening my skills, my delivery, my actually coaching. I'm really passionate about getting better every week. And I'm in a great space at the moment, working with the Rebels under Dave Vessels, who I highly, highly respect and is probably one of the most intelligent head coaches I've ever come across. And he has extremely high standards of preparation from the off-field staff. And it's given me a real appreciation around working at that level of the game. So I enjoy, at the moment, I'm working online for the Rebels and I'm really enjoying that. It keeps me sharp. I'm looking at the trends of the game, how teams are reacting to the new interpretations of the laws, digging deep into stats and looking at what are the winningest trends happening in the game at the moment. So that's keeping me really sharp around that. And obviously Otago, we're into pre-season mode. and I'm exploring some brand new attacking strategies that have never been seen before. So I'm kind of sharpening my coaching around that area of the game at the moment. And then obviously with the Free Jacks, I've really enjoyed this challenge of putting the roster together and having awesome conversations worldwide with agents and players. And I've actually really enjoyed that aspect of it and finding out how things are going, where they are in their country, and making really awesome connections. So in terms of workload, the day I became a professional rugby coach, I don't think I've worked a day yet. I'm just doing stuff I love. I still get out surfing. I'm a passionate surfer. The water's pretty cold here in Dunedin, which is great because then it's not so crowded. So I go out in the water, and that's where I get my clear thinking time and come up with some of the weird ideas you're going to see coming forward. But no, I haven't worked a day since I've become a professional coach, to be honest.
Fantastic. No, Ryan, you touched on a little bit about yourself there. Obviously, a big surfer, one of the hardest workers I know. I know when you talk about those sport classes at Otago Boys High School, you were in amongst a lot of those trainings and leading from the front of the pack, and you're not afraid to put in that work yourself. Talking about grinding away on the cross trainer at Les Mills, watching MLR games from 2020. What else can you tell fans about yourself? What does Ryan like to do? What's Ryan Martin all about? Tell us a little bit more about yourself, mate.
Yeah, so obviously mentioned surfing. That's actually a huge passion of mine, and maybe in a different lifetime I would have been a professional surfer. That would have been pretty awesome. But yeah, that's huge for me. Being able to have something. I'm not a rugby head as such. I love the coaching aspect, but I think it's important to have other things in your life that and where you can generate stories and come at your team from different angles. So I'm really passionate about getting out there and doing things, different things, meeting different people. I think it helps with your coaching. In Dunedin, after a match here, you'll get 100 pieces of advice after a match. And I think it's important to listen to all 100 and take it with a smile, because my rule is of those 100, you're going to get one gold nugget. So I love talking to people and seeing their different views and ideas of the game. In terms of family, my daughter's 21 now. She's third year at law school, and she's doing really well. So she's been flatting. And I have a stepson who's 13, just started Otago Boys High School actually, and really enjoying his rugby. So it's cool just going and watching him play. I have a outdoor spa here, so every night I'll head out, put it up to 41.5 degrees, jump in and start thinking up some ideas. So it's quite nice when it's a really frosty Dunedin evening, sitting in my spa and conjuring up some ideas for the coming week. But yeah, I think I'm balanced, a balanced person, and I think I'm passionate about making people better. That's first and foremost for me. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty excited around making some awesome connections over there and working with our player group.
Good man, mate. I'm very excited to have you in Boston and New England, and so much to kind of show you and take you through over here. And I can't wait to get back to New Zealand at the same time and get involved in that spa pool and a bit of surfing with you. Before we get into the quick fire questions, let's just go a couple of quick ones here. I know you had some good thoughts on both of these points, but what are our players what can they expect from the inbound head coach from Ryan Martin coming in 2021, pre-season day 1, November 30th? What can our players expect?
I think the first thing is that they're going to have a coach who actually wants to make them better as a person. I'm not worried about a rugby player. That will come with the betterment of holistically of the player. Will come through working with them as a person. So the things I'll be looking at is, what does the next level of the game look for them? And I want them to be aspirational. I want every single player in the Free Jacks to want to be better and go to the next level of the game, or whatever that looks like for them. So I'll be putting some pretty big structures and scaffolding in place for that to happen. As I mentioned before, I'm super passionate around skill acquisition. And I believe individually, if the players are getting better week by week, then that collectively that goes into the team ethos. And I think that coming from where I've come from, I'm really passionate around the emotional connection, and players feeling connected to something. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a location. I think as long as we're connected to a purpose. So we'll work pretty hard around what does that look like for the Free Jacks. And obviously Boston's got a really rich, awesome traditional history, which we'll obviously be tapping into to help us with our connection and understanding of the region. But also they'll be expected to work pretty hard. I also have a bit of a saying that success is a choice, and there's an easy way and a hard way. And I always remember going back to Wayne Goldsmith. He was a very successful swimming coach. I think he won over 20 Olympic gold medals over a decade, which is pretty significant in a very competitive sport. And he said he could always pick the kid who would go on to win a gold medal. And it wasn't the kid whose parents would come and wake him up early in the morning at 4 a.m. and have his breakfast ready, his hot cuppa, his swimming gear all ready. It was the kid that would set his alarm half an hour early, go and wake his mum up, have her cuppa ready for her, have his swimming gear prepared the night before, the washing done, ready to go, and make sure that mum and dad were, all sorted for, then jump in the car and had everything organised himself. He said that type of attitude leads to success. And that's what I'll be expecting of our players. We're going to be successful, but we'll be doing things the hard way. And work ethic will be at the forefront of everything we do. And saying that, people tend to get work ethic tied up with longevity or the amount of time. I actually won a premier banner here with the Dunedin club. And our mantra for this season was train the least, win the most. But when we said win the most, we actually broke down winning little moments in training. So yes, we're going to train the least, but let's win everything in the training that the other teams aren't doing. And that mantra went on for us to win the banner in 2016 with Kaikorai. So people tend to think work ethic means working for a long amount of time. That's definitely not what I'm about. I'm about get our work done, do it with an intent that no one else is doing, and get it done while other teams are still out on the field. And to me, that's a winning culture. So that's going to be important, and that's what the players can be expecting when they come into my sessions.
Good man. And I know that work ethic sort of mantra you talked about is definitely what Boston's built on, the sort of farming on granite. Working really hard, rolling up the sleeves and just doing what needs to be done is definitely what the Free Jacks pride themselves on. And we're very excited to have you in from that point of view. And then I guess to build on that, what can our members expect when they leave a Free Jacks game in 21? What can they leave the game sort of thinking, having seen the team play?
I have a real simple rule when it comes to our members and to the people that are supporting the team, and that they must leave with a wow factor. There must be something that they go, wow, what did I just see? I think if they can see that, and if they can see a team that rolls up their sleeves and wins those kind of big moments, the head and the spokes type things, people appreciate that. If you look at someone who's given their utmost effort, effort is a currency to your supporters. Whereas if you look down and think, well, hang on a minute, could I do a better job than that? And I think that's where you get that disconnect. So firstly, I want everyone to leave the ground with a wow factor. And secondly, I want them to look at a team with massive effort. And we just win everything that requires no talent. Real simple and something that people can be proud of. And we'll have a huge open door policy. I would expect our supporters and anyone involved in the success of our team and supporting us to feel as though they can come in anytime and feel part of what we're trying to do.
Awesome, mate. No, we can't wait to have you in. It's going to be, like you've mentioned, an open door policy built on work ethic, and obviously your range of skills and experiences are going to pay off tenfold. We can't wait to have you, mate. So thanks for taking the time. And before we sort of see ourselves off here, we'll get into the quick fire section. So we've got 3 quick questions here that we ask every week. The first one, mission statement. So one thing the Free Jacks pride themselves on is trying to make the world a better place, doing those little things that can sort of help to make the world a better place. So one thing at the moment that you're doing to do just that, to make the world a better place.
Oh, well, I think for me, it's what I mentioned before around connecting with people all over the world. And at the moment, we've all got a shared concern around COVID. And I've been really enjoying the conversations with all the people around the world, the agents and the players, and maybe the lead part of our conversation was all around COVID and who's doing what and how can we do things better. And I think we've got a heightened awareness, and obviously New Zealand's in a good space around what we've done. So it's been pretty cool to talk to other people in different countries around this and build a shared understanding of how can we beat this thing.
Cool. Nicely said. Next one is favorite free jack and why. You may not have a favorite free jack yet, but there might be someone that you're excited to work with, someone you're excited to bring in. Could be a member of the organisation, could be anything. Is there someone in particular that you're really excited about moving into the 2021 season?
Yeah, there is actually, and it's the halfback from last year, John Pollan. I think watching him play, I see a guy who's passionate about the organisation. I see a leader. I see someone who's inspirational, and he always has a smile when he goes to work, and that's huge for me. If you're playing the game with a smile, then that's a win already. So I'm actually pretty excited around working with him, to be honest.
JP, yeah, always one of the favourites typically. So yeah, excited to have him back for the next 3 years. And then the favourite one, Ryan, the last one rather, is a stadium song for 2021 for the Union Point Stadium. Have you got a go-to one you like to hear around Forsyth Bar that gets you going pre-game? I'm sure you do.
Oh wow, that's actually a great question. I am a huge Beatles fan. So I would love to have the crowd in full voice singing "Hey Jude."
Hey Jude, good stuff. I'm sure Alex Magleby will be all over that. And mate, before we love you and leave you, are we going to see the moustache back in sort of full force for the season? What are you thinking there? It is cold in Boston. Will it be the full? Will it be a beard potentially? Will it be a goatee? What are we looking at?
No, it'll be a full brush moustache. I'm a massive fan of 90s hip hop, and I loved some of the real old school brush moustaches that you'd see in those old hip hop songs. So I think I'll be that.
And what about the cheese cutter? Is that solely a Landers thing, or are Otago going to be donning the cheese cutter this year? Can we expect that from you? In
yeah, that's actually gone massive. A lot of the club teams in Dunedin are wearing them as well. It's it's a Peaky Blinders thing that's just infiltrated New Zealand. So to be honest, I'm going to think outside the square. I'm actually a massive fan of the old school truckers hat with the mesh. So I'll come up with something different, which will be never been seen before.
Fantastic, mate. Ollie Engelhart will be all over that, I'm sure, on the merch side of things. Ryan Martin, truckers hats, please, Ollie. Let's have those ready for his arrival. Ryan, mate, thanks so much for being on. I know you've got a busy week ahead of you with the announcements and a few interviews to get through, so I won't hold you up anymore. We are pumped to have you in 21, and thank you so much for the time today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. It's been really enjoyable.
Sweet. Cheers, mate.
It sits up. It's still going. Flicked it field. It's Champagne Rugby from the Free Jacks.
Let's ride!